Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of School Spirits. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we are immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode, the revelation that Maddie had where she remembered that her mom lied. Her mom said, oh, I never met with Maddie. And in fact, she did. And it's like now Maddie's wondering, could it be possible my mom killed me? And it is that situation that her and Simon are investigating. But even Simon's asking, if your mom actually did hurt you, would you want to know? And she's even talking to Wally later on and she's breaking down because it's like, what are you supposed to do when the person that's supposed to take care of you, that's supposed to be there for you, support you, is the one that ended up hurting you the most, hurting you in a way no one else has before? It's like, how do you deal with that? How do you come to terms with that? And that's kind of a harsh reality that, a harsh possibility that Maddie has to deal with, especially because it's not the money that Nicole had that they found. The money they ended up finding, in fact, ended up being... the money the thing they found in an envelope was Maddie's necklace. So it's like, right, how did you have this? Because even Maddie was like, when I came here, I didn't have it with me. So the killer must have taken it with them. So it's like, if my mom has it, there's a chance she's the one behind this. So they had this whole setup because Maddie's getting this award that it's like, hey, we need to confront my mom about it. And Simon confronts her and we find out the truth about what happened. Maddie's mom didn't kill her, which I figured as much. But what happened is Sandra, rather than going to rehab like she was supposed to, she bought some cabin or whatever on a good deal, but it meant spending Maddie's money. And she's like, no, yes, it was Maddie's money, specifically money her dad had left her. It's kind of like insurance money, I guess, on like a death like a life insurance policy or something like that, but the money was meant to be her college fund. And for Maddie, it's like that broke her. It was like that was the final straw because it's like she's done so much. She's dedicated herself time and time again trying to help her mom, being there responsible for her mom, having to lie to her friends about what's going on. Simon knows some of the stuff, but even he doesn't know how bad things have kind of gotten. Obviously, that's also a big reason why Claire and Maddie stopped being friends, is because Maddie didn't want to Claire to know the truth that day about how bad things were with her mom. So, and because for her mom, it's like, right, I'm trying to do something for us, but for Maddie, it's like, no, you're doing something for you. You've taken from me over and over again. No matter how much I give to you, you always just take more and more. It's like, right, you want to take everything that Dad's ever given me here, and he gave her the necklace, and she walked away. That's what's been eating Sandra up. She'd already had her issues beforehand with Maddie, but that's why even more so when Maddie disappeared, it ate her up even more, because it's like, no, I failed you in so many regards, and I failed you in that moment because she saw that look in Maddie's eye that it's like, she will never forgive me, and now that she's gone, she may never have a chance to earn back Maddie's forgiveness. But that's why she was holding on. Okay, Maddie can come home. If she comes home, then I can have my daughter back. But it's like, no, now that they believe Maddie's dead, there's no going, and that's what really made her sink again, because it's like, hey, I failed you. Our last conversation was an argument. I didn't have an opportunity to apologize. I recognize how I failed you over and over and over and over again. So that's the truth of it all. And even Maddie, because Maddie was remembering at the time her mom was telling everything. So it's like, yes, Maddie can confirm everything her mom was saying the truth. But it's like, yeah, my mom killed my spirit, but she's not the one that murdered me. So it's like, who did? I was like, this is the point where my brain was like, dude, I'm racking through all the possibilities with this side of things, with the ghost side of things. We'll get there soon enough. But I was like, oh my God, are we going to find out it was Simon? I kept waiting the entire episode. But is it going to be Simon? Is it going to be Simon? Turns out not to be Simon. And I'm like, then who the hell is it? We've run through all the suspects. I was like, not unless the sheriff did. But I'm like, what reason would he have? To be fair, he's too busy trying to the re-election's around the corner, and he's probably been getting a lot of pressure for the fact is that they haven't solved Maddie's case. So he needed a fall guy. It's like, yes, despite what Xavier's saying, right, that guy, my alibi is also his alibi. We were each other's alibi. There's no way he could have done anything to Maddie, but the sheriff doesn't want to listen because, hey, I got my guy. That's all I need. I need this for re-election, and he's refusing to listen to Xavier say hey, we need to do something about this. But his dad's like, oh, you're just trying. There's a lot of deep-seated issues between Xavier and his dad, and his just dad's unwillingness to listen. Maybe where Xavier ends up at the end of the episode might change him for the better, to be a better person, to treat his son better. Because, you know, when I love that that's become like the investigative trio of Nicole, Claire, and Xavier. Because there's an address that his dad had written down, and I've forgotten completely about it. There have been break-ins throughout the course of the series. They've been such a background thing, and we find out there's such a focal point of it. We'll get to that soon enough, but nevertheless, I love the back and forth of like, because Xavier's like, man, maybe we should go, you know, say what we know about, you know, freeing Mr. South. But Nicole's like, yeah, that's not going to end up well on any of our part, because, yeah, me and Claire are neck deep in we both blackmailed someone, so that's not going to look good on our part. But it's like, right, we got to get proof. But the problem is, Mr. South is already being labeled, like they cross out his name on the door, someone spray painted, clean this up, killer. It's like, yeah, if they don't solve this, that man's reputation is going to be down the toilet. I mean, it already is. So I guess that's also why Maddie's mom, because that was also a thing too, Maddie's mom's reaction towards him last episode was because she probably still believed him to be the one. I thought maybe it's probably a combination of guilt of like, it was meant to be like a thing of retroactively you'd be like, oh, maybe she was getting pissed at him because it was a reminder of what she did. Kind of, but it was more so like, I think she truly believed Mr. South did it. And it's like, you're the person that potentially killed my daughter, took her away from me, took away any chance I had of ever making things right between me and her. So there's that. But the point I was bringing up earlier, you know, jumping ahead a little bit, Xavier ended up getting hit by his own truck. I figured that was going to be an issue the moment Claire left the keys inside. I was like, yeah, the person who's inside the building is just going to come out and then snatch up the keys and take off. Which they did exactly that, but they backed into Xavier, which he ended up not, you know, getting hit by the car was bad enough, but when he fell back, he hit his head against the pavement, so he's bleeding. He most likely has a concussion. His dad showed up on the scene and drove with the ambulance. So that's what I mean. Like, I think that could potentially lead to things changing. That maybe his dad might try to be a better person, because it's like, right, like something could have happened to you, or maybe he'll double down and be like, why did you go there? It's like, maybe he's even going to imply like, right, maybe if I had done my job, maybe Xavier wouldn't have been there in the first place. Or like I said, maybe he'll get doubly pissy. We still don't know like the reasons why he is the way he is. One lane of thought could be maybe it has something to do with Xavier's mom. We know she's not in the picture. We don't know in what capacity, whether like she died or whether they just split up and she lives somewhere else. I mean, obviously we know Claire's parents are split and she has a stepdad, which we haven't really seen him in the picture. I am curious going forward, will we get more with the parents? Because obviously we focus on like our core cast, and some of the adults end up being some of like the guest starring cast in some regards. So I'm wondering, we know like her parents are important in some regards because of like the money situation of like her blackmailing Anderson and all that, but still. So we have all that going down on the living side. On the spirit side of things, it's like, okay, things are popping off. Whoa. Dawn potentially moved on. Everyone felt it. And even you could tell Dr. Martin was getting nervous. He was messing with his button and he was just kind of antsy. And like Charlie and Wally are really pushing this, but Rhonda's kind of like, yeah, let's kind of leave that alone. I'm like, why are you were so adamant about, you know, leaving this place. So why are you now like backpedaling? Like, I mean, I get like, right. Dr. Martin said he's going to help you move on and stuff. Now that you actually want to move on, now that you kind of have hope of moving on. But I'm like, why are you backpedaling now a little bit? I was like, I guess maybe you're trying to stick by him, because if you don't stick by him, he's not going to help you move on. I don't know. But Charlie and Wally are like, yeah, there's something going on here. Like, and he kept bringing up the Janet thing, because I think in that moment, last episode is when Rhonda was like, yeah, I didn't feel anything like that when Janet disappeared, because Janet didn't move on. I was like, did he do something to Janet? Like, what's going on here? Like, there's definitely something there that he's hiding. We're just not sure what exactly. But Wally got some confirmation from Maddie about what happened, and she was like, right, I told her that Maddie told Dawn what she needed to hear. It's kind of her thought, because it's like, right, Dawn kind of blamed herself, and it wasn't her fault the way people treated her, which even Wally's like, yeah, he kind of felt bad, because it's like none of them treated her that well either. But my theory last episode was curious on whether or not this kind of has Lucifer hell vibes. Once again, if you didn't hear it last time, my theory was in the show Lucifer, the only thing keeping you in hell isn't Lucifer. He isn't the one that decides whether you get to go to heaven or not, or get to finally leave hell. It is you, because your own guilt is what keeps you there. So I was wondering if a similar thing kind of applies here. Maddie said it's like, hey, she heard what she needed to hear. And I'm curious if that's 100% the case. It might be a combination of Maddie's words finally made Dawn kind of come to peace with herself, which not everyone else has fully come to peace with themselves. So it is a situation of there's still things that they kind of have to work on and come face to face with. But I mean, that also led to their confrontation with Dr. Martin early in the episode, because for them, it's like, we've been working at it for decades, and all this stuff of us doing stuff like the mock trials and this and that, it kind of hasn't helped. None of us feel like we're making any progress. All of a sudden, Dawn, who never comes to these meetings, she moved on like in almost an instant, because obviously Maddie showing up changed a lot. She kind of threw a wrench in the way things have kind of been operating for so long. And that ends up being a thing of like, what's going on here? Especially when Charlie confronts Rhonda. He's like, why are you not pushing for this? And she's just like, stop, Charlie, stop before you don't know what you're mixed up in. I'm like, and he was like, but I thought we were friends. She's like, why? Just because we're stuck together, kid? And it's like, I was like, oh, it's funny you call him kid, but it's like, well, yeah, you are older than him. With the way things played out through the episode, because we learned a little bit more about Dr. Martin. He was very shy around the details of like, oh yeah, like, there was one student I turned my back on, yada, yada, yada. I was like, that sounds like there was something potentially going on between, like, just that little conversation of like, he specifically was like, oh yeah, I saved the rest of my students, but, he talked about this one student, but he said he was the one that died alone. I was like, that seemed wrong, but also, the fact is, I was like, was there something going on between you and this student? That's when I started like theorizing. I was like, wait a minute, are we going to find out that Rhonda is actually Janet? That like maybe there was a Rhonda, but Rhonda actually moved on and she just pretended to be someone else. I was like, because I'm assuming, cause in the grand scheme of things, in retrospect now, it's like, no, the rest of the crew knows what Janet looks like. So of course that wouldn't have made any sense. That was something I was thinking for a while, but I'm like, no, like they all knew Janet enough because she only recently disappeared. So it's like, okay, so like they all knew what she looked like. So there was no Janet pretending to be Rhonda. That is something to keep in mind, obviously, as we continue the conversation, because of what the other developments in this episode is something to kind of keep in mind. So Wally and Charlie actually had this really profound conversation too about they don't want things to kind of go the way they went with Dawn. Like, because it's like, regardless of like, we weren't really friends, but even Charlie was like, I kind of sad I didn't get this, say goodbye. And Wally's like, I don't want that. Like, I didn't get to say goodbye last time. Like, none of them really did. Obviously, especially that's also that none of them got to actually say their goodbyes, especially in Wally's case, and definitely in Charlie's and Rhonda's case as well, Maddie's case as well. Like, none of them got to say goodbye. So they start digging a little bit more. They find out about, it wasn't just Dr. Martin in that fire. It was believed he's the one that started it, but he wasn't the only victim. So was Janet. And you're like, so what's that all about? Then they end up in the room that Rhonda was in, like, was it last episode? Maybe the episode before, like either episode 6 or 7. Rhonda went into that room they found. It's because it's the room, that extra room that was in the same area where Maddie potentially died at. It's in that basement area. Rhonda went into that room like an episode or two ago. You're like, it was a small, like, maybe 30-second scene of her there, and you're like, what was that about? Then we find out, like, because Charlie and Wally start looking through it, it's like, whoa, what's all this stuff? Their obituaries, he's been writing notes. He's not really helping them, he's studying them, every aspect of their death. And the moment the notes are talking about like it almost sounds like he was implying that there was a portal between life and death, that basically he's trying to find out that the moment of someone's death or whatever, there's probably like a portal of sorts is open, and maybe that energy creates like the moment of death, like there's a portal that's open that maybe you could bridge that even as a dead person, which kind of heavily leans into the rest of the episode. But It definitely seems like that's what he was trying. That's why he's pushing and prodding, like, because he's trying to use everyone to try. And I figured he had some twisted experiment thing going on. I don't know if this is 100% his idea. Maybe he's a little bit of a mad scientist. I guess like Janet was kind of like his main subject, because they note that none of the journals have anything about Janet, because Janet probably never opened up about her circumstances, especially because she's heavily tied to Dr. Martin. Rhonda shows up, and it turns out the reason why she was in this room previously isn't because she has anything necessarily to do with all of this. It's because she found out about what Dr. Martin was up to, because she followed him here, because she probably noticed his weird reactions, plus the Janet stuff made her go like, nah, there's something going on here. There's something funny. Once again, the Janet stuff might have been like episode 7, and Rhonda following Dr. Martin might have been episode 6. And because the fact is, once again, there were no journals on Janet, so Rhonda couldn't really pull anything from it. So that's why she was probably trying to stay on Dr. Martin's good side. But she shows everyone, like, here's this little drum. It has all the objects they had when they died. Like, he's trying to create something. And I think it's, like I said, I think it is about bridging that void between life and death. So, and they automatically get locked in there, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And they go, wait, why isn't resetting? I'm like, for a second, I was like, wait, does Dr. Martin not follow the rules of this place? But then part of me wonders, is like, could that have some... Well, because part of me wonders, like, for that to be the case, it has to be a situation of maybe someone living locked the door. Maybe either they're just a special case. Maybe we'll talk about Janet and Dr. Martin are special cases, so they can kind of interact. But maybe it's a thing of, yes, things in this world get reset, but if you set something in the living world, there's no like changing it in the, there's no resetting it in the after like this purgatory that they're in. At the same time, this had all gone down in the living world. Maddie's mom had given her speech about, it's like some of you might not have known who Maddie was. She accepted a reward on Maddie's behalf. It's like some of you might not have known who she was, but just know that Maddie was a very caring person about her friends, about going to college, about me. She cared a lot about me more than she should have. She took on a lot of that responsibility more than she should have. But at the end of the day, that if you actually like had asked Maddie for help, she would have, because that's the kind of person she was. She was a good person, and obviously in her case, she kind of mentions her failings, because she's like, right, this is the first time I've ever been in this gym, because yeah, Maddie never did anything like sports or athletic related, but anytime she got some academic award, she never wanted me to show up, because she didn't want me to embarrass her, and kind of the mess that I am. So, but that whole speech touched Maddie, and for Maddie, it's like, my mom is finally willing to say goodbye. I think I'm ready to write my obituary too and finally say goodbye as well. But this whole situation, especially because Nicole took a video of the person who took Xavier's truck and got away, and she was like, no way, who could? I was like, what is it? At first I was like, could it be Simon? This is when I was still in my bag thinking, I was waiting for the twist, because I was like, because Simon was a suspect I had early on, but as the series backed away, I felt less and less likely that he was a suspect, but at the very least, I was still always ready for that turn and reveal. But it's like, no, the twist in this regard is, turns out the person at the end, the person who hit Xavier, the person who's been breaking into these houses, the one who stole the money from Nicole, is Maddie. Not Maddie, actually. It's Janet. Janet jumped into Maddie's body. I don't know if it was something they've been testing out for a while, and it finally happened, and Janet took her opportunity. Did that happen by accident? I wonder, was she also using this as an opportunity to get away from Dr. Martin because he's psycho or what, Because Maddie remembered at the very last minute what happened, because she heard Dr. Martin yelling. I was like, how is that possible? And in that moment, she saw not only him, but Janet. So they've learned how to cross over in some shape or form. I don't know how they managed to do it. Like, once again, it has to be like an energy thing. Because it's like, how did because we know that's not 100% true. We know Simon can see Maddie, and there's just something there. Because Maddie's thought was like, right, the only reason why you can see me is because you love me. Like, you're someone that's given so much and you ask for very little in return. But for Simon, sadly, he now thinks he's crazy, because he's like, this is you, the real you out here. out there, the person I'm talking right now, this is all some like some way of me processing losing you, but the real you's out there. This you I'm talking to is just a fake you. But Maddie's like, no, I'm real. And when she tried to go after Simon, she crossed the boundaries of the school and ended up at her death spawn. And in that moment, like, he turns back around and it just, in his mind, it just solidifies, you're not real, which is like, oh, that's such a bummer. I mean, who knows how this might affect his potential ability to see her going forward. Maybe him like trying to say like you're not real severs that connection between them, because up till now he's been the only one that can see Maddie. He's also the only one that can see the ghost, but Maddie saw Janet and Dr. Martin. We didn't, like, obviously Janet was shown as a silhouette because they probably haven't cast her yet. They were just keeping, they haven't probably solidified, like, okay, who are we going to get to play Janet? That was just someone filling in for, it happens from time to time in those situations. But I'm so, how did that happen and why did that happen? And I guess the entire time she's been trying to figure things out, kind of get acquainted. She I don't know if she knew she had to hide away as Maddie, but also implies Maddie isn't dead. She was hijacked, but she did suffer a pretty bad injury. So it could be a thing of the only thing keeping Maddie's body actually alive is, maybe that has something to do with it too, because Maddie's technically not dead. Her spirit was just bounced out of her body. But once again, she saw Dr. Martin and Janet, so that raises even more questions on like how that fully works. But part of me was wondering, like, could it be that Maddie's dead and Janet is in her body? Or is it going to be a thing of, no, the moment Maddie gets back in her body, she pushes Janet out. Like, her body is fine. She's okay. I mean, maybe Janet's been doing everything she can to make sure Maddie, she probably had to take care of herself without letting anyone see her, because it's like, okay, you can't be around anyone that might start asking questions about, and you're like, oh, Maddie, you seem weird, you sound different, you seem different, you don't remember stuff that you should remember. So that was a beautiful and interesting twist. I was like, before the Janet reveal, I was like, what does that even mean about Maddie? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, could it be like a twin or something? But it's like, no, Janet hijacked her body. At first I was thinking like, is it Dr. Martin? But it's like, no, it's Janet. That's interesting. So our trio of Charlie, Wally, and Rhonda are locked in that boiler room or whatever, and Maddie's on the outside with Dr. Martin. So what that turns into, we'll have to wait and see. But we do see that Janet is leaving town. Now, granted, how far she'll be able to get, who knows? How do you remedy it? I mean, Simon knows she's alive now, and so does at the very least, well, Xavier's, in his condition right now, but eventually he'll find out, and they'll probably tell the police about it, because I didn't talk about it, but like Nicole, when she took the picture, I was like, how are you going to be able to tell? Because when you zoom in on the reflection of the mirror in the video, they see Maddie's face. So the police are involved. Simon knows Maddie's out there, so it's about tracking her down. So, but Maddie remembers now, so she can communicate with the others. And Simon, if she can get him to listen, be like, yeah, this is what happened. That is my body, but that's not me. So, like I said, crazy finale. A lot of crazy things. At the time of recording this, it is the 15th at the time of recording this. I'm getting to this a little late. But the show has not been renewed for a second season. It hasn't been canceled, but Paramount Plus hasn't revealed whether or not they're going to renew it. I hope they do. Because obviously the creators behind the show have a lot of thoughts about what a season 2 would look like. Once again, this is based on a graphic novel that doesn't come out until November, so I don't know if it's going to be like a one and done story for the graphic novel, but maybe for the show, they were like, kind of like the End of the Effing World had a season 2, but that story went beyond the what was the story of the comic, because the comic and the TV show's endings, the first series versus the ending of the comic, were different. They made a different choice, and that led to the second series the show being able to have a second series, whereas where things ended up in the comic, it was kind of a one and done story. So maybe it's going to be something applicable, or maybe it's just like they're just going to handle things a little differently in a graphic novel. I have no idea like how it compares and contrasts. Once again, we're talking about a graphic novel that also, based on what I was reading, is not going to come out until November. So I don't know. Once again, I could be completely wrong on that front. Like I said, that was just the information I was basing it on when the show, during, like, you know, after researching it, after watching the first 3 episodes or something. Either way, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a second season, because I'd love to see where season 2 would take us and figure out more of understanding what this is all about, and also deciding, you know, how they handle the Janet Maddie situation. So hopefully we get a season 2. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.